Yuba-Sutter.live's local government live streams are presented by Plumas Lake Self-Storage in Plumas Lake, where lifelong local residents are helping other residents keep things safe, providing indoor storage units, outdoor RV and vehicle parking, moving supplies, and Penske truck rentals. Details at plumaslakeselfstorage.com. Skip's Marysville Music Cafe, with lessons, in-person and personalized. Instruments including guitars and amps, horns, strings for instruments, and a myriad of music and sound equipment. Skip's Marysville Music Cafe.
I knew him when. Yeah. I knew him when. You said I got to stay to the script. Give me the have to stay professional. Good, thank you. Where's your time? Well, you know, I thought I'm doing okay. Thank you. Goes well. How are you? Good. It was fun. Yeah. Still give me a couple months. Yeah.
I think we feel very well protected right now. I know that. You guys know something we don't? I don't know.
We'll let you know in a little bit.
Okay, we will go ahead and call this meeting to order. This meeting is being held in the council chambers. We are open for public attendance and participation. This meeting will also be live streamed for public viewing, but not participation at the link identified on the agenda. Emailed comments sent and received by the city clerk at least 24 hours before the meeting were distributed to the city council prior to tonight's meeting. Can I have roll call?
Mayor Shaw,
Here.
Vice Mayor Kirchner,
Here.
Councilmember Boomgarden,
Here.
Councilmember Espandola, here, Councilmember Harris.
Great. If you'll rise, our invocation tonight will be given by Pastor Ron Fortenberry, who's our Yuba City PD chaplain. And then I would like to ask former mayor and current council member Sean Harris to give the pledge afterwards.
Pray with me. Almighty God, we thank you for the privilege of being able to attend this meeting, to take care of government business, and to honor Sergeant Hatfield. Thank you for protecting him through his years of service. Thank you for keeping him strong and safe and integrous. Pray, Father, that you would bless him and Kristel as they go off on their new journey. Bless them with continued strength and focus and purpose. Bless this meeting tonight. May your hand be upon every council member as they make the decisions to better our city. Thank you for being here with us tonight. We ask all these things in the name of Jesus. Amen.
To the flag of the United States of America and its republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Mr. Chaffin, do you have anything to report out of closed session tonight?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There was no reportable action taken in closed session.
All right. Is there any modifications or changes to the agenda tonight from the council? Okay, then we will proceed as it is presented. That brings us to why I know at least half the room is here tonight. I'd like Sergeant Paul Hatfield to come forward and join the council right here in front of the dais, please. First of all, it's an honor to be here tonight and present you this on behalf of the council. And I'm not going to dive into the past, but it's hard to believe I've known you for 30 years. And yeah, I know. The accomplishments that you've done during that time are tremendous. And so before we read this, as a reflection of your colleagues that are here, it's been a great career. We all want to extend a healthy, hearty congratulations on your retirement. So. Tonight's proclamation is in recognition of your retirement. Whereas Paul Hatfield was hired as a reserve police officer by the city of Yuba City on August 11th, 1990. And Paul has held the positions of reserve police officer, and police sergeant. And whereas Paul has been recognized with numerous awards and commendations for his exemplary professional performance, including over 40 letters of appreciation from the public, peers, and supervisors. And whereas Paul has served as an example of a leader and a team player in his capacity as an employee of the city of Yuba City, Paul has received 5 Chiefs Unit of the Year awards, 4 Police Unit Commendation ribbons, and 7 Police Fitness ribbons. And whereas Sergeant Paul Hatfield took an oath when he was hired to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution, an oath that you never broke. Whereas Sergeant Hatfield kept faith with the public, he so honorably served for more than 32 years. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Dave Shaw, Mayor of the City of Yuba City, on behalf of the entire City Council and the citizens we all serve, do hereby congratulate Sergeant Paul Hatfield on the occasion of his honorable retirement, September 14th, 2022. We wish Sergeant Hatfield the very best in his future, done this 20th day of September 2022 in the City of Yuba City, County of Sutter.
Glad he didn't go. Huh? So I'm glad Dave didn't go into other stuff that he knows about with me, to the audience. I appreciate that. I just want to say thank you. It's been 32 years of a great career. It was a difficult thing to pull the pin, but it's time to let the younger guys in and let them move up and through the ranks. It's a great family. And hopefully none of you forget about me, because I do know you do dinners and all that. I do love to come to those. But thank you very much, and appreciate it, Brian, Sam, for everything that you've done for me. Appreciate
it. Did you have something you want to present, Chief? Chief, why don't you come on in, and then we'll do that. That's the call.
All right. Even though, Paul, I haven't forgot about that ticket you gave me when I was like 13 in 1991 or 1992 for some heinous violation that involved a bicycle. In recognition of your honorable retirement from the police department and for the things that the mayor mentioned that you've done throughout your career, on behalf of the men and women of the department, I'd like to present you with the Meritorious Service Medal.
Nobody go anywhere. Councilmember Baumgarten had a great idea. We are one big family here. So I would like all the members of PD to join us down behind the dais for one final picture with Sergeant Hatfield. So come on down. If we can't get everyone in, we can bring people down front with us. Are you good? You good? Okay. Hang on, wait, one more. Come on, guys, the meeting's just getting started. Gotcha. Keep us safe, guys. Thank you. That's good. That's good times right there. So definitely. Now we're going to go on to the Senior Center Proclamation. Senior Center. It's a tongue twister. So, all right. I need, if I could have Commissioners John Boyer, Tony Curlin, Michael McFarland, and Pam Epley come forward. And I believe, Jessica, you're here as well. please come on up and join us. Right. Oh, so you're my victim. The one I get to present to, right? So thank you guys for being here. And September is many months around here, but one is National Senior Center Month. And whereas the month of September is devoted to celebrating senior centers and their contributions to improving the quality of life for older adults in our community. And whereas the Yuba City Senior Center strengthens community connection with fellowship and fun, the Yuba City Senior Center, I don't know who wrote this, but it's a tongue twister. A lot of centers. Offers a variety of interactive activities such as Waffle Wednesdays, Friday night bingo, games, and card groups. Writers' workshops, art programs such as poetry, painting, and ceramics, and fitness programs such as yoga, line dancing. Is that Tai Chi? Okay, awesome. Hey. And whereas the Senior Center promotes health and wellness, improving physical and mental fitness of people who participate in the programs. And whereas the Senior Center works with community partners to provide information and resources to seniors through the annual Senior Resource Fair and various educational seminars and workshops. And whereas the Senior Center offers the life enrichment and lifelong learning through day trips and various destinations such as the theater, musical, museums, art exhibits, as well as access to domestic and international travel experiences, exercising the mind and body and keeping adults engaged in the community. And there are many other activities designed to promote active lifestyles and confusing the mayor's tongue. Whereas senior centers are valuable assets in communities and provide a space for older adults to connect with others, providing support for those in need and information and resources, and provide programs that help older adults continue to age well. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Dave Shaw, Mayor of the City of Yuba City, on behalf of the entire City Council of the City of Yuba City, do hereby proclaim September 2022 as National Senior Center Month, and doing so as the citizens of Yuba City commend the Senior Center for being such an outstanding community resource offered in our city, and I made it to the end. There's all three of you. And if I may add in my own words, because I work with a lot of seniors in my profession, it is so important that our seniors have connectability, a sense of community, friendship, and camaraderie, because that just extends the quality of life and helps us have even longer lives. So on behalf of all of us, again, thank you so much.
I'd just like to say that Jessica runs the Senior Center and does a remarkable job. Well, that's true. That's the only senior center that serves several counties, and everybody's welcome.
Okay. I have the pleasure of working at the Senior Center, and these are two of our 5 senior commissioners. And I'd just like to thank City Council and the senior commissioners for your support of our Senior Center. We have some amazing programs and some wonderful staff and volunteers, and just thank you. Thank you for your support.
Jessica, I knew you could do it. So thank you for your leadership down there. We really appreciate it. And thank you, City Council. We do appreciate the recognition.
And I can see the joke at their next Waffle Wednesday. How many times can the mayor say Senior Center in Yuba City, City Up? Oh, yeah, bingo.
Oh my goodness, that's great. You're a senior.
All right, we're going to move on to emergency preparedness. Chief Alexander, would you please join us down here? Yeah, just tell me there's not a tongue of tongue twisters in this one. All right. Before we do the proclamation, would you like to say something about Emergency Preparedness Month as we're getting ready to celebrate?
Good evening, everybody. I'd like to use this month as September as Emergency Preparedness Month to just continue to remind people, if you haven't already developed one, to do so and refresh yourself with any plans that you can for an emergency to empower everybody to know your alert tones, your evacuation plans, and develop emergency kit.
All right. In recognition of Emergency Preparedness Month, September 2022, whereas emergencies, I need my sunglasses. Whereas emergencies can happen unexpectedly in communities like ours to people like you. It's always good to have a plan in place to be prepared for emergencies. And whereas the entire Yuba City community can take actions to become prepared to respond to and recover from any natural or manufactured disaster, no matter how big or small, the more people who prepare, the quicker our community will recover. And whereas Yuba City first responders may not always be able to reach you quickly in an emergency or disaster, and the most crucial step that you can take in helping them is being able to take care of yourself and those in your care for at least a short period following an incident. And whereas during National Preparedness Month, September 2022, community members are encouraged to take time to prepare themselves and those in their care for emergencies and disasters that can impact our neighborhoods for days at a time. And whereas all Yuba City residents and business owners are encouraged to be prepared, visit the Yuba City Fire Department website to sign up for emergency notifications with code RED and to learn how to build a disaster supply kit, create evacuation plans, and general emergency preparedness. And whereas Yuba City community members who prepare to meet emergencies or disasters can positively influence their neighbors by sharing their preparedness story and encouraging friends, family, and coworkers to be prepared. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Dave Shaw, Mayor of the City of Yuba City, on behalf of the entire City Council, do hereby proclaim September 2022 Emergency Preparedness Month and encourage the community to to make sure that you and your family are prepared for an emergency. Chief, we present this proclamation to you, and thank you to you and your team for everything you do to keep us safe. Chief, we do have one more thing. Isn't the fire department having something on Saturday?
So we have a few items coming up for Emergency Preparedness Month. This Saturday from 9 to noon will be an open house. It's an emergency preparedness open house that will cover a wide variety of different activities, from hands-only CPR to in your zone, which is Zonehaven, which will be addressing registering for Code Red and a bunch of other items. And then on the 27th at 2 p.m., we'll be doing our annual Code Red test for the city.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, next we have someone that's near and dear to us, and that is Kristel Martin. We'd like for you to come on down and join us at the dais. We're willing to wait. Just bring barbecue. For those of you that don't know.
All right, I'm on my way. I'll be there soon.
For those of you that don't know, she recently left our community and now lives in the great state of Texas, correct?
Yes. Howdy, y'all.
Well, Kristel, on behalf of the entire council and the city, I can tell you you're already missed in our community, and we would love for you to be here tonight to personally receive this. But we're going to present it to you just as if you were here, and then we will get this off in the mail to you. So we have a letter of appreciation, and I'll read that to you. Dear Kristel, as the mayor of Yuba City and on behalf of the city of Yuba City and the council, We all want to congratulate you on your 5+ years of dedication and loyal service to the Downtown Business Association and the community of Yuba City. The city of Yuba City appreciates your dedicated service and efforts for coordinating the community events on Plumas Street. These annual events are a major draw for the surrounding communities, and it is a chance to see and catch up with friends and family. The attraction of the summer stroll, Christmas stroll, bunny hop, trick or treat Plumas Street, holiday shopping night out are special events that make Yuba City unique and enforces the sense of community. We thank you for being part of the community, and your efforts served a worthy cause while strengthening relations with the citizens of Yuba City. We wish you all the best of luck on your new adventures in Texas. With our best regards. Thank you.
Thank you so much, you guys. That means the world to me. Plumas Street and downtown and the whole community, I've been there for over 30 years. It is home to me. And, you will see me. I may be away, but I'm not gone. I'm already planning my next trip there. So you will see me, and you can buy me a hot wing or buy me a beverage. And you are the heart, the heart of me, and part of the community is downtown. So I look forward to seeing the events and seeing everything that goes on. And I really, really appreciate the support from the council. Always, whenever I needed somebody to be a crossing guard or to help, you guys were always there to help out. And I really, really appreciate. And the board that I've worked with for this 5+ years was made it such an exciting job. So I really appreciate each and every one of you.
Thank you so much. Come back, Kristel. She's still on. Oh, she's coming back. There you go. I know Texas has problems, right? So, there you go.
Hi, Kristel. It's an honor to be here tonight to just recognize all that you gave back to the city, and look forward to you when you get back here. Come back soon.
Yes, I will. Thank you.
I love your new home. Just did the tour with you the other day. But I have to say that you are so missed. Your presence, your work that you've done for everyone, and your smile and your generous ways of just including everyone. I just love that about you, and I know you're going to do that in your new community, but you're always welcome to come back to ours. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kristel, just to add to that, thank you for all your years of hard work. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, Kristel, thank you very, very much for all your help. The Plumas Street won't be the same without you, and all the events won't be the same either. You're going to be missed. You already are. But congratulations and best of luck in your next chapter.
Thank you. Yeah, I know. I've got to find a new street walking job.
Now that was fun.
Just kidding.
We will close it out with this, Kristel. When you come back to town, please let us know. Wings and drinks are on the council at the biking. So.
Thank you. It's a date. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Let's have one more round of applause for Kristel. All right, we're going to move on to our SACOG blueprint project, and we're privileged tonight to have Mr. James, I almost want to say Corbin, it's Corliss. James, thank you for being here. You're more than welcome to use the other podium if you'd like as a presenter. And because you've got a presentation and she's got things, so why don't you go ahead and use that one if you'd like.
All right, I will do that. Okay, good evening. Nice to see you. James Corliss, Executive Director of the Sacramento Area Council of Governments. Always great to be here in Yuba City. I wanted to give you all a bit of an update. We're going to every city council, every board of supervisors across the 6-county region and talking a little bit about the next large looking out into the future long-range plan for the region. I also want to touch on a few of the initiatives and the projects. I know it feels like I was here somewhat recently, so I want to touch on those. Obviously, I recognize Councilmember Harris as your representative to the SACOG board. Always a pleasure to have Councilmember Harris engaging in all things SACOG. So the blueprint is the name that we are giving to the next plan for the region that is required by state law and federal law. It's really important. It has lots of requirements. It also has hopes and aspirations. It's going to look out this next time over to the horizon year of 2050. So it is a long-term 25-year plan across all 6 counties and 22 cities. I want to remind you that part of the many things I think is both special about this region and about SACOG as a council of governments representing all of you at the local level is for a region this big across these 6 counties. We covered the same land area as the 9-county Bay Area. Every single local government is around our table twice a month. That is not the norm for regional agencies like ours. And I think that really lends itself to a lot of involvement and engagement and bottom-up planning. So again, we are required by law to do a long-range plan. There's a lot of requirements on this. I'm really here tonight to give you a teaser, a heads up that we'll be coming back to all of you. We want to engage your city and your residents next year in 2023, because this plan is really about what kind of a future do we want for our region? What kind of a place and communities and neighborhoods do we want to leave our kids and grandkids? How do we want to move around? How are we going to accommodate a growing population and the like? So in terms of, I'm going to touch a little bit on this and then close with some of the very specific initiatives that are coming up. One thing that's interesting, if we look out over the horizon and we think about growth in this 6-county region, and I'm sure you're feeling it here, we're a fast-growing region. In fact, the coastal regions of California now have started to lose population, and we've started to gain population. In the 2020 census, we were the fastest-growing metropolitan region in California, and we expect that to continue. If we look out over the end of this, sort of the last couple of 10, 15 years of the plan, that growth rate is going to slow down. Simple demographics. So interestingly, as we go out from the current plan of the horizon year of 2040 to 2050, that growth rate is going to slow down, but the growth itself is in front of us, and we have a lot of growth that's still to come. We're adopting what we've called a triple bottom line framework for this next plan, where we're trying to think about on par with each other, equity and access to opportunity for a growing diverse population, economic prosperity, and a sustainable environment with clean air and clean water. You think of us potentially as a transportation planning agency, because a lot of what we do is transportation. This plan is a lot about transportation. And I just a few highlights here. Of course, we love talking about the 5th Street Bridge, and the 5th Street Bridge project is a great example of where the region came together. And we were able to work with you all and the county and the city of Marysville to aggregate funding. We pull a lot of federal funds in for things like Yuba-Sutter Transit, and we have a lot of other projects that we have funded through our every other year transportation funding round. But as we think about the growth of the region, we think about things like potholes and traffic congestion and safe routes to schools and a lot of these other things like how is it safe for kids to walk and bike to school, or seniors or families. When we think about transportation, we actually have to first think about growth and economic development and land use. And in this next plan update, we're going to be taking a little bit more of an intentional approach to thinking about the different alternative growth patterns and phasing of growth that we could see in our region. And this is really critical in terms of how we grow. We want infrastructure to be phased and to keep up with growth. We want to understand the balance between growing outwards and growing into some of our green fields and our farmlands, revitalizing our existing neighborhoods, rethinking maybe even some of our commercial areas and our older vacant properties or older strip malls, and thinking about how could those be sort of revitalized and reinvested in. So sort of the simple thing here in terms of 1, 2, and 3 is we're going to be presenting to you when we come back next year 3 alternative futures, if you will, for the region. 3 different ways of going, paces of growth, shape of growth. Is it more compact development? Is it more walkable development? Are we going to be having leapfrog development because of different kinds of economic forces? How do we knit together a transportation set of investments to keep pace with that kind of growth? And I think hopefully, interestingly, we'll have a lot of data. So we'll be able to show you what air quality and traffic looks like in 10, 15, 20 years. We'll be able to show you how safe streets are. We'll be able to show you how connected communities are. Whether your low-income populations can have access to jobs and healthcare and schools and services. And all of that, again, in terms of next year, we want your help. We want your help to engage your community and your residents. It's not enough for us to have a public meeting at 7 o'clock in downtown Sacramento and hope people show up. We don't want to do that. We want to come to you. We want to come to you not just at your council meetings, but we actually want to get out to where people are. We want to be able to engage with your residents and your communities. You know them best. Your residents know them best. So we're going to be asking you for creative ideas about where we can meet people where they are, where we can engage with them. We're going to be doing polling. We're doing focus groups about the future of Yuba City and Sutter County and the entire 6-county region. So we really want your help to make sure that that is right-sized for your communities. So we're setting up this year in 2022. We will be back because 2023 is the big year of input education, these 3 alternative growth pathways and scenarios. We'll have sessions just for elected officials. We'll have sessions with community organizations. And we will be picking and developing, really not picking one of the 3, but having those 3 alternative futures really inform what we'll call our preferred pathway, which will then pull forward and model will become our long-range plan for this region. So I want to talk just a little bit about some of the initiatives that we have underway. I mentioned a little bit about equity. We know there's a lot of lower income communities and communities of color across the region that really have been sort of not at the table, that have been cut off from resources and from planning. And we want to work with your cities and your counties to figure out where are there communities where we can actually do some intentional work with your staff, and we can actually go out, much like I was talking about for the plan, but specifically around transportation projects. Where are the safety issues? Where are the access issues? Where are the mobility issues? Where are the places where people don't feel safe having their kids walk or bike to school, or the drop-offs? So this is a program we're going to be standing up and launching next year called Engage, Empower, Implement, where we really want a lot of lower income communities to be at the table and really helping shape their transportation solutions. And by the way, this is a huge theme already for state grants, for transportation grants, and for federal grants as well. This is maybe a little bit of a map that's kind of hard to see, but in terms of those growth alternatives that I mentioned earlier, we have worked with all of your cities and counties and your staff to identify what we call green zones, areas where if we get some additional infrastructure investment, water, sewer, utility upgrades, we know we can also get some additional housing and economic development. So happy to say that your staff has been, as always, great to work with on this. They've been really engaged. You all and Marysville and Yuba County and Sutter County have identified these areas. We were able to secure $38 million in state funding through the budget, and those applications are live right now. This fall, we will be awarding projects again for kind of the harder to see, again, water, sewer, utility upgrades, but that will actually, we hope, really kickstart some economic development and revitalization around the region. And this is key because, interestingly, when we look at maps of the entire region, we think about transportation and driving. One of the things that you may not know, or maybe you do know, is up here in Yuba City and Marysville, and the core of the twin cities, on average, your residents actually drive much less because you may be having to drive places, but you're not driving as far. Compared to most residents around the region, you're not putting as many miles on the road, you're not emitting as much pollution. And so more growth and housing opportunities in your subregion, in your city, is a good thing. So there's a lot of reasons that we want to help actually facilitate your general plan implementation and a lot of your housing aspirations. Zooming back a little bit, big picture from the 6-county region, I touched on this, I think, last time I was here. We also know, and really the pandemic has accelerated this trend of people working remotely, of folks in the Bay Area moving up to our region, up to the foothills, up to Tahoe. And we're seeing commute patterns really change. We're seeing people now and their trips and where they need to go really change. We're seeing businesses that are actually getting a footprint in our region, businesses in the Bay Area coming here, but still have a footprint in the Bay Area, need to move people back and forth. So these are 12 projects that our sister agency in the Bay Area and in San Joaquin County as well, our mega region working group across 16 counties of Northern California have identified. This includes I-5 up to the airport, I-80 corridor, some passenger rail projects. And as I mentioned to you, I think when I was here earlier this year or last year, there are plans to both extend the ACE rail and the San Joaquins from the Tri-Valley, Livermore, Stockton up to downtown Sacramento and the airport. And right now we're helping Butte County and working with many of your staff to look at extending that further up to Marysville, Yuba City, and Chico, because we think that market has a ton of potential in the future. So if you can imagine passenger trains here once again, there is more money now available than ever before for passenger rail, and we want to be able to use really the power and the strength of our communities and our residents, our elected officials across these 16 counties to go and advocate for that. Councilmember Harris has been a big advocate for this next plan, which is a vision that we released earlier this year to unite all 6 counties and 22 cities with a network of off-road paved trails. So imagine, if you will, you could get anywhere in this region, never actually having to bike on a busy road or a street. So we have trails for sure. I know you've got some here in Yuba City, but if you zoom back, they're all disconnected. They don't actually connect with one another. And this vision, we worked very hard with cities and counties, but also flood control districts and levee districts and utility districts. And this is a plan building about what we think is very ambitious, 1,000 miles of extra trail to connect the entire region. So you could go from Yuba-Sutter all the way down to Sacramento, to Yolo County, to the Delta. You could even get from Lake Tahoe all the way down to the flatlands on a continuous trail someday in the future. That's the vision. We work really closely with our economic partners in the Greater Sacramento Economic Council and the Metro Chamber to release an economic prosperity strategy. That's our kind of our economic E. So a lot of this is about actually how do we retain and attract talent and growth and industry and businesses, because they are looking for other places to be. And we think especially the Yuba-Sutter region is a great place for that. And finally, just to end on this note, here are your leaders of tomorrow. High school students. We run a youth leadership academy for 9th to 12th graders. We have an open call for applications right now. Councilmember Harris has been great, not just to get and solicit kids from the high schools up here, but also to sit down with them and work with them during this program. The applications are open through November the 4th. We'd love to get as many applications from all over Yuba City as possible in your school districts. The program runs from January to May. We get state legislators, we get members of Congress. We teach them all about what we think is a really pretty incredible discipline, which is regional planning, engineering, transportation, housing, air quality, you name it. And that's a growth industry. We want kids like this to understand that and to be engaged in civic service and public service, and maybe have a career someday. So with that, thanks as always for having me. I hope to gave you a little bit of a sense of what's coming in our long range plan, but also some of these initiatives that are ongoing that help us implement that vision from day to day and month to month with your help.
All righty. Thank you, Mr. Corliss, for being here. Councilmember Harris, I'd like to give you first opportunity since you're a representative. If there's any questions or anything you would like
Thank you, Mayor. I just really appreciate you taking the time to come up here and, like you say, give a little sneak preview of what's the good things to come, James. So clearly a lot of work has gone into these plans and continues to be so. And the race and equity inclusion plan is phenomenal. I think we got on board with that early, and it has become, you see them popping up all over the place now, to the point where we even said, and now federal funding is sometimes contingent on having such a plan. So for your vision on that alone, I am grateful, and we all are, along with everything else. So it's a pleasure to work with you and, of course, your wonderful staff. So thank you very much, James.
Any other questions from the council?
Through the mayor.
Yes, sir.
Can you go back to the ready, set, trail slide?
Yeah, no problem.
Is that really a chicken by Yuba City?
Do we have a chicken in Yuba City?
Thank you for noticing. I appreciate you noticing that.
How about that?
We had nothing to do with that.
That's what that says. We see you.
I figure that's.
I'll let you decide that. It's a little bit of a.
No, seriously though, occasionally I get to participate in the SACOG meetings when Councilperson Harris is not, and always amazed at the level of the discussion and the things that SACOG is doing. I don't think a lot of folks in our region really understand. I shouldn't say our region, our city, really understand the value that having Sean on the committee and your leadership on SACOG has really meant to the city of Yuba City. So just from me to you, thank you. Thank the members of SACOG and the staff. And it's always good to hear our staff is doing what you think
is awesome.
So appreciate you being up here tonight.
Look, one of our measures of success is if I can walk in the state capitol and they already know who's coming and where Yuba City is and why you're amazing and why you deserve investment. That's a measure of success for us. And there's so many things I didn't mention in here too, including a lot of our clean trucks initiative and trying to figure out if we can develop some pilot projects to actually have refueling and electrification for trucks, right? So you can deal with the truck parking issue, but also the pathway to a transition to cleaner trucks and and be a pilot project, right? To be a leader. And we think the Yuba City, Marysville region, we've got a panel of actually development experts coming up here in a couple of months to look at your economic development opportunities in both cities, uniting across the bridge and the river, as it were. So yeah, we're enthusiastic. I hope that comes through.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
You're the mayor. Councilman Harris, excellent work. Well, I know, but the representation that you're providing for our city on SACOG, I know James and his team does all the work, but we wouldn't know or be as included if you weren't there in the presence and the conversation. So I thank you for that. I think that's really cool, very cool. I'm just excited about this development of the plan that you're putting together, and I have tons of questions. Those questions can come in the development when you get to the 2023 part. But things that are just, off the top of questions that I've gotten from community in the area that just been focused mostly lately. The question that is the transportation. You're saying that there is less miles traveled in this community. And I'm curious to understand, is it because people don't have their own vehicles, or are they locally driving? There's probably a lot to that.
Yeah.
And you don't have to give me the full answer, but then one thing that is the lack of public transportation. We have our transit, which is fulfilling, but I'm honestly excited about the trains for passengers. Yep. I think that's a great connection. And yep. So can you help me understand that?
Yeah, no, I'm thinking to myself as you're speaking, how do we give you the easy answer? That's always the problem in transportation, is how do I give you the easy answer? The easy answer is, and we can certainly share data and do a session for who's ever interested. A lot of your residents drive when they're able. I mean, some are not, right? Age-wise, either under 16 or elderly or income-wise. So, but there's a lot of, as I understand, a lot of, available vehicles and driving, but the trips are short. Relatively speaking, the trips are short. And you may not notice that because you have traffic, and I know Highway 20 and 99. And so I'm not trying to say you don't have traffic, but you have shorter trips. And so from an economic development perspective and from can you attract a job base and housing up here? Like, that's a good thing. Largely, you're surrounded by a lot of ag, right, and floodplain. And so in some ways, if I look at you and zoom back from space, you're almost a community that has a lot of things here. I don't have to tell you that. You can get to your basic needs. It's not to say that people don't drive south to Sacramento or over to Beale for jobs. They do. But for the most part, on average, they drive less. And why is that important? Less pollution, you're in some ways a sort of an efficient community. And from a state perspective on pollution and air quality and emissions, that actually matters. That's, again, our job is to have the state understand and see you as a sort of an efficient community where economic development actually has a sort of a win-win-win, if you will. That makes sense. Now, sorry, go ahead. Well, I would, the other thing I've heard from working with a lot of your folks, which I also think is very exciting opportunity, is walking and cycling does not feel as safe here necessarily, right? And so we were, Yuba-Sutter Blue Zones and your cities and your counties have put together a grant application that we played some role to assist with to the federal government and a grant program called Safe Streets for All, which would actually develop a plan just for the Yuba-Sutter region around safety and like in addition to these trails, right? Really good, safe accommodations so you're not worried about your kids or yourself or your parents walking and crossing the street, cycling, and all the rest of it. Because otherwise you have a fantastic place here, weather-wise, topography-wise, you know, trail-wise. You've got all these ingredients that you just could be this walkable, bikeable place, which by the way is no longer is that an amenity and a nice to have. That's a must-have, really, to retain your population and attract talent.
Well, I appreciate that. I look forward to the next phases of the plan. Thanks.
Any other comments?
Through the mayor?
Yes.
Thank you for that presentation. As someone who does use the bike path around here, I've met individuals that will drive from Grass Valley, Nevada City. They feel safer down here, and so 1,000 more miles of safe lanes. I'm all for that. Thank you.
James, on behalf of Yuba City, myself, I know, and everyone here, I just want to extend thank yous. As Councilmember Baumgarten said, a lot of people don't understand the role that SACOG plays, and it's huge. I've been on transit for many years. You've helped us with several grants there. We're on our way to about $47 million for the transit facility. We've got the rails to trails. We see all of the inner workings between our regional partners, which is SACOG and GSEC, and understanding how it all goes together. And to answer the other question, as far as why people travel, we have one of the highest levels of percentage of people that work and live in the same community. That's why our trips are so much shorter. And so I just want to say thank you for all the hard work and can look forward to continuing our relationship with you guys. So thank you. All right. We will move on to agenda item 6, which is Zonehaven. And we've got Sutter County Emergency Operations Manager, Zach Hamill. And you have the floor, sir.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Zachary Hamill. I am Sutter County's Emergency Operations Manager. What does that mean? That's I'm the paid pessimist. So I think of all the bad things and how to fix them. So starting with the county 3 years ago, I heard a lot about evacuations. And one of the other hats I wear is a liaison officer on a CAL FIRE incident management team. So unfortunately, I have a lot of experience with evacuations, repopulation, and actually utilizing Zonehaven in a disaster. Just a little background on Zonehaven. The county opened an RFP in September of 2021. The contract was presented to the Board of Supervisors in October and was awarded to Zonehaven. Excuse me. This software is funded in part by the Gordon and Betty Moore Grant, the Emergency Management Performance Grant, and the county's Public Safety Fund. Kickoff started in earnest in January of 2022, and over the last 9 months, a team of city and county staff have been working diligently on developing the zones and providing data for the evacuation planning, which we'll talk about. So, where would you go today to find out about an evacuation in Sutter County? To answer that would be Zonehaven. So this platform bridges the gap between first responders and community members. It will help our community stay informed with real-time evacuation updates during an emergency. Zonehaven Aware is a web-based platform for community members. Residents can look up their address utilizing the search bar to find evacuation information for their area. Zonehaven Evac is a public safety portal that allows first responders to build evacuation plans per zone, including how many officers, public works staff, and other resources it takes to evacuate and secure an area. These items are not identified, these items would not be identified to the public, but evacuation routes, identifying evacuation points like shelters and animal shelters would be viewed in the public portal. Agency officials make changes to the zone status that are reflected in real time in the Aware site. So the information that you see on community.zonehaven.com is up to date and authoritative. So evacuation zones. Knowing your zone is critical to the evacuation process. If there is a wildfire or emergency situation, this is how you would check if you are in the impacted area. If you are ever asked to evacuate or shelter in place, these orders, along with any other critical updates, would be communicated to the public utilizing predetermined areas called evacuation zones. Pre-established evacuation zones help fire, law, and emergency services agencies prepare for, streamline, and reduce confusion around the evacuation process. By evacuating the most at-risk zones first, emergency personnel are able to manage the traffic flow and more easily prevent the traffic jams that occur when entire towns or cities, or as we're familiar, county, tries to evacuate all at the same time. It also provides a common reference system for all first responders and the community. Here in Sutter County, the team identified 91 evacuation zones, and of that, 39 zones are here in Yuba City. It should mirror closely what was pre-established city zones before this effort took place. There may be some minor edits for ease of use and understanding for our residents. So to find your zone, you'd go to community.zonehaven.com, enter your address in the search bar, and your zone will pop up. Excuse me. We would encourage everyone to write down their zone and have it handy in case of an emergency and keep it in an easily accessible place. Each zone is labeled with 2 or 3 letters as a precursor that identifies the community. So here would be YC, Meridian would MDN, etc. That is followed by a dash and a U or a C. U standing for the unincorporated area and C standing for city, and then a zone number. The zone numbers under 100 are associated with the Yuba City area, and the zones over 100 are the unincorporated area. So these are the zone statuses within Zonehaven, and these are the adopted phrases here in California. So evacuation order would be immediate life threat. So it is a lawful order to leave now. Evacuation warning would be to get prepared, and if you require additional time or have family members or pets that require additional time, that might be the time to actually leave. Shelter in place would be going indoors and locking and shutting your doors and windows. Advisory being things that aren't actionable. So if there was a gas leak in the area or something that we want you to be aware of, but we're not actually asking you to take action at that time. Evacuation order lifted, green being you're free to go back home. And then as you can see on the previous slide, all of the zones right now are that white color, so they are normal. And then we actually have a training feature, so first responders can go in there and actually train as if it were a real environment, so we can exercise and be more prepared and efficient when time comes we actually have to use it. So this new tool will speed up the evacuation process. Knowing your zone will help us get you and your family out of harm's way much faster. Finding your zone before disaster strikes will keep you from needing to look it up each time you get an alert. If you memorize or write down your zone number, it'll give you more time to take necessary action. Timely evacuations will help our first responders save time so that we can focus on protecting homes and businesses. Zonehaven will provide county-specific information. So as you look at your zone and the other impacted zones, there is specific information to Sutter County and our two cities, Yuba City and Live Oak. Zonehaven supplements Code Red, the county's emergency notification system, and I'll cover implementation in the next step slides. And then I was just on with Zonehaven this week, and Aware 2.0, so the Aware public site, there's going to be a 2.0 rolling out here in the next couple weeks. That will actually come with a mobile app, and that will allow you to get notifications of any zone changes within 6 miles of your location. And you can also save home zones, if you will, for those places like home, work, school, for if you're outside the area, you still get notified if anything changes. So what does that mean? So what is the evacuation process? So we have an emergency. Our first responders on scene make a determination that, yes, we need to do an evacuation. So they would call for that evacuation. We'd put out the emergency notification through a multitude of different avenues, Code Red, the wireless emergency alert, social media, county, city websites, you name it. And then we would go and update the Zonehaven Aware site so that as people get the notifications, they can go and have a visual representation of what we're asking them to do. So how does that impact our residents? So with the emergency detected, whether that is receiving the wireless emergency alert, receiving a Code Red notification, or actually witnessing the emergency, they would reference that zone, whether they have it written down or memorized. They would check Zonehaven to determine if they were in that zone. They would grab their go bag if they are, check on their neighbor, and then evacuate. So, are you ready to accept the challenge? So our next steps, Zonehaven is live now. So we need to work more on educating the public about our zones. We'll be integrating them into the bepreparedsutter.org website. It'll be integrated, all of these zones will be integrated into our flood brochures and other preparedness literature. We're actually having magnets for refrigerators customized to the county so people can have this. There's a QR code to go directly to the Aware site and you can write in what your zone is. So that'll be a handy reference. And then we'll also be conducting community preparedness fairs where we'll highlight the Know Your Zone campaign. Like I discussed earlier in the presentation, this will be integrated with Code Red. So there is the ability for all of these zones to be inputted into Code Red. So when we are launching messages out to our public, all we have to do is grab that zone and that language associated with that zone and hit send. So it streamlines our process when actually getting emergency notifications out the door in a much more timely fashion. And then lastly, I would urge everyone to sign up for Code Red. So you can go to the city's fire website or go to the bepreparedsutter.org website and sign up for Code Red. And that is all I have for you tonight. If you have any questions.
Any questions from the council? None?
Thank you for the presentation. It's a big task to try to bring in a new system to have the community respond in situations of what it may be. Sometimes using Wi-Fi is a challenge for folks, or using the internet or the website. What other means of communicating with, I saw it's translated into a few other languages,
Correct.
But I didn't see the Punjabi language on there.
So they're working on that.
Okay.
Currently, they are utilizing the 4 main languages in the United States. They're, as I'm sure you're aware, Punjabi is not an easily translated language. So they are working with us to do that, since that is one of our primary languages here in the county.
Right. Okay. So how for people that are not literate in the computer world, how do we?
So this is just one tool in our tool bag.
Okay.
While we are issuing emergency alerts and evacuation orders and warnings, we would reference a zone, but we'd also reference geographical areas. So whether it be north of, south of, east of, west of, like city streets, or maybe community names like Sutter or Lomo Crossing, other areas that people are familiar with as a local geographical reference.
Yeah, I'm just saying that if people aren't signed up because they don't have the computer literacy or knowledge of receiving it, because some folks are not, what other means are you utilizing to communicate in those emergencies?
So there's a number of different ways that we'll get the message out. I think that's what you're asking. So one, we have Code Red, which we bring in white page and yellow page data, and then we also ask the community to sign up for. Okay. In addition to that, we utilize IPAWS, which is the Integrated Public Alert and Warning System through the federal government. And that is the emergency alert system, which is across the radio and TV, typically during your favorite TV show, interrupting that. In addition to that is the wireless emergency alert, and that does not require you to sign up. That goes out to any and all cell phones made in the last 15, 20 years. And that there is some limitations with that, but we can draw a geographical area and push out a 90-character message to those cell phones in that area. In addition to that, we'd obviously be utilizing our partnerships with local media, radio, newspaper, county, city websites, social media, you name it, whatever we could to get the message out. If we were actually doing an evacuation and it was time critical, we'd most likely be also doing officer door-to-door or sirens of some kind from patrol and fire vehicles.
Thank you. Thank you. You answered that question well.
Thank you.
Thanks. I had the same question about the technology. Yeah, it's just I know there's a lot of folks that don't have that or choose not to have that. Thanks for the presentation. So I heard a lot of reference to county. We're here in the city, and something happens, and it's not everything affects the county because we're under that umbrella. But perhaps you can shed a little light on how something's happening in the city. How are we able to activate Zonehaven?
So there's been a number of staff, and if Chief wants to step in, I'll gladly give you the floor. But just as the quick 5-second is, there's a number of staff that have been trained up in the police department and the fire department that have administrative rights to go in and utilize it.
Is that within the dispatch center? Because I'd hate to think that someone in the field was going to have to take their time away from actually response to operate and activate.
So unfortunately, we do not have anybody trained to that level in dispatch center. We have 2 police officers, 2 fire individuals, and 1 from City Hall. The intent is to continue to broaden that portion out. It's not an extremely complex process, but it is time consuming. And so we're also trying to understand the limitations of our dispatch center, knowing that they're receiving all those calls, and we're already asking them to put together a code red message to get that out. So as we continue to increase this going on, that is the goal. But I'm also realistic knowing that I can only ask so much of our dispatch center. So we're trying to get more individuals, including city personnel, that can help step in here quickly and get that going. But the priority is that code red to alert you that there's an emergency. And then as we have that second to breathe, then to get in and start updating Zonehaven.
Thanks. I think that going back to the Orville Dam incident and the struggles that occurred from that, I mean, I think that we're moving along at the right pace to get the right things in place, but I struggle at times if we haven't got the people to accomplish the tasks. And both of you are familiar with that because I know you engage in that. So it can't be the person, it can't be the police officer in the patrol car or the firefighter, doing whatever it is that's the emergency demand. So I challenge you to get after that piece and have some backup and depth and redundancy, because I could see this wonderful product not activated. And we saw that, pieces of that in the last evacuation.
Agree, and we're working diligently on trying to expand as much as we possibly can.
Perhaps just for everyone else is how explain the interaction between Code Red and Zonehaven, since you mentioned it. What's one bringing, what's the other complementing, et cetera?
So Code Red is our push of the message, where Zonehaven is going to be your visual representation. So I can't give you the visual representation over a voice message or a text message. So that's where I'd reference going to the community.zonehaven.com website so you can get the visual representation of what are we trying to describe this area is that needs to be evacuated.
Okay, so if I understand this correctly, Code Red is going to be activated by whoever's the incident commander, and they've got this issue going on, and there's going to be some message involved, and then Zonehaven is going to depict that in a picture, basically. Okay. I don't have any other questions right now. Thank you.
Okay. Questions to my right? Pardon the ignorance of this, but my concern is the confusion. Okay. And when I say ignorance, I know I have a zone in Code Red. I couldn't tell you what that zone is. And is it going to be the same zone in Zonehaven, or am I expected to learn two different zone numbers now when I haven't even learned the first?
So the only zone is actually in Zonehaven. The Code Red app and iPause and all of those are just resources that we can use to push messages out. So whatever message we put into that was what is distributed out. So if we take the zones out of Zonehaven and reference zone 1, 2, 3, that's what we'd put in the message as we distribute it out through iPause and Code Red and everything else.
Okay, because I go back to the concerns that Councilmember Baumgarten had, and we know what happened in 2017, and it wasn't the picture perfect way of things should have happened. And I think that's really what we're all trying to get to, is taking care of our residents, making sure that we have that coordination. And if we need to get people out, we get people out. If people need to shelter in place, they shelter in place. But it's that transfer of information. And as I was thinking, you say the different media outlets, Councilmember Espindola was talking about, the other medias. We were recently on a flight back as a council coming from Long Beach at the league, and they had the high tide warning. Every phone on the plane went off at the same time. I think of our seniors, they don't have, great mobility, some of them. How are we going to ensure, and how are we tied in? I know it may run across the television with the emergency alert system, but I just start thinking even news media, we don't seem to be tied in as well up here as the greater Sacramento area is. So I know it's going to be education, it's going to be coordination, and we definitely need a lot more of our personnel that can activate these things, because I would hate to have an incident to where, our police and fire department are dealing with something inside of the city that the county's not, and we don't get it dealt with because we're waiting on the county, or vice versa. So just trying to help me understand, how do we avoid what happened in 2017 and getting the messages out? And how do you get people on this? And it's going to take a lot of effort. And I'm not trying to be negative. I'm just looking for answers.
Yeah. So I think there's several components to that answer. First off being our partnership between the city and the county, not only with fire and emergency management, but also with law enforcement. I think, at least I feel like we have a good working relationship between all the agencies currently. So that's number one, is obviously that internal communication amongst all of us. Number two is absolutely the Sacramento media does not service us very well. So one of the things that we strive to work with is like 93Q, Punjabi radio, the local Hispanic radio station. So we try to hit all of our local stuff that actually has some kind of vested interest in our local community and what the community is listening to. And you're right, this is brand new. They've only been on the market for the last 2 or 3 years, but I'll tell you right now, this is the gold standard. And if you look at the community.zonehaven.com website, you'll see that probably half the counties in California right now have adopted Zonehaven, and they're working diligently to bring on more and more counties every day. So it's not just for us here locally, but if you travel to other parts of the state, you can utilize this same system. And if people are traveling into our area, they'll be familiar with it as well. But you're right, it is all about education, and it's gonna take a lot of work. We just rolled this out. It's just been live since September 1st. So this is our first step of getting it out, is the board meeting last week, your city meeting this evening, and then Live Oak City meeting on October 5th.
I did have a couple follow-up things. Who's going to determine the evacuation levels?
Moved. So it's going to start at the field level, first of all. So I'll use our battalion chief, Chief LeBlue here. He pulls up to an incident, determines the situation, and determines the level. Hey, is this in a situation where we need an evacuation order to get everybody out, meeting those criteria that were up there? Or are we looking at a warning or a shelter in place? At that time, he's going to come up, make that communication to dispatch, let dispatch know exactly what area he wants under an order, warning, or shelter in place, have that information go out as quickly and timely as possible. And I know everybody's continuously hears me here, code red, code red, code red, but that's the easiest way for me, other than placing a phone call to each and every single individual, that I can make that notification right away. And so that on-scene incident commander is going to make those initial levels. As the incident progresses, we go into unified command, those may change based upon the nature of the incident, or if we're anticipating this incident growing further, we'll start working and trying to get out in front of an incident so that we don't get behind in our evacuations and flood specific roadways and things along those lines. So we're trying to be surgical, and that's why we have the smaller evacuation zones for Yuba City, so that we can try to get out in front of those.
You keep referring to fire, but I guess I need to talk to the chief of police too. I mean, is this, you see it this way as well, chief? For a law enforcement incident or something that you guys?
Yeah, essentially we would utilize the same type of process. It would be our on-duty field staff, and then if it ratcheted up to a level that involved more of a management response, those evacuation orders would go out into the area that's impacted. I recall back several years ago, we had a gas leak over Yuba City refrigeration. So something like code red, with people knowing their zones, with the Zonehaven portion of this, that would have been very helpful, trying to get those people out of those areas in a more expeditious manner than trying to send personnel that we could utilize for other things to do that. And so, like Zach and Chief Alexander have been talking about, the big thing is just education, and you know, whatever we can do is, you know, as a community to push this out and get the word out to folks. That's going to be our goal.
Thank you.
And to add on to that real quick, one of the ways that we're going to be utilizing this to get people aware of what's going on is this is going to be utilized during the Sikh parade to show people, hey, here's the road closures. And the other thing that I did not talk about, but there is integration with the Waze navigation app. So as we close zones, it will anybody using the Waze navigation app, it will automatically route them around so they stay out of our evacuation orders.
Two more things, if I might. I see Mr. Bumpus in the room, our pre-hospital emergency medical care person. Are they worked into this system as well?
So by statute, evacuations fall on law enforcement. But under any kind of incident, we strive to work under a unified command system. So if we had a large medical issue, we would obviously be consulting them.
You good? Perfect. Okay, last thing is, this is from the old gray-haired guy in the room. Exercise, exercise, exercise. I mean, I can't stress that enough. I mean, you can have the best equipment and the latest, the gold standard, but if you don't play with it, it's just 2 cents from me. Take it for what it's worth, but it needs to be, you need to test it, you need to train with it, and you need to operate it.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. If I can follow up with that, from my military days, I've talked with Chief Alexander's exercise, exercise, exercise. That way it's second nature. I just lean to my colleagues. What is the Waze navigation? I use Sirius, live traffic in my car, Is that tied into that, or is Sirius?
So
gonna tell me I can go
there's
down a
three
road?
main navigation apps. There's Apple Maps, Google Maps, and Waze. Google owns Waze, so they're technically the same application. So through computer magic, when we do an evacuation order or a warning, that will actually route to that navigational app, and anybody who is utilizing that at the time with navigation, it will reroute them around. So we're saying, hey, this area is closed, and your route of travel took you right through the middle of it. It will actually take you around it.
You're telling me don't use my navigation, use Apple CarPlay, and I should be fine.
So they're still working on Apple Maps. And I know every day they're bringing on more and more integration. So I don't know the full scope, but I do know that a number of people use Waze and Google, and it does talk to that because we've actually tested that.
Okay. Any other questions from the council?
Through the mayor, the only thing is this whole system is only as good as the community understands their role. And if we don't really engage with Code Red, Chief, how many do we have signed up now percentage-wise of our city? Do you have that off the top of your head or something?
I do not know the exact numbers, and I'm not quite sure on the percentage, but we've grown significantly since we started doing the outreach. And I believe the last time I ran the numbers, I want to say it was something quite shocking, like a 205% increase from the initial campaign.
So I mean, just on the side of the practice is people need to understand how to utilize it so they can respond and not make it more challenging for those who are trying to help. Thank you.
Before we wrap this up, Ms. Langley, do you have any comments or any questions you would like to ask?
I do. I would suggest that we work with Zach and his team to come up with some infographics for us to place within our utility billing, to put out via YC Connect, to put on our website, to think of all the different channels that we can get it out to the community and continue, because this is so important. So Zach, we'd like to work with you to come up with materials that we can distribute within the city, and then those materials can also be utilized throughout the entire county. This is so important.
Sounds great to me.
Yeah.
Right. Chief Baker, any final comments?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay. Chief Alexander?
I'm good.
All righty, thank you. All that ways to say I'm good. Zach, thank you for being here, and I'm looking forward to all of us working together to do what's best for our citizens. So thank you. All right, we will move on to agenda item 7, which is appearance of interested citizens. You're welcome and encouraged to participate in this meeting. Public comment is taken on action items appearing on the consent calendar or business items as the agenda when they are called. Public comment on any other items within the scope of the city's jurisdiction, including items not listed on the agenda, will be considered at this time. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes per speaker. Members of the public submitting written requests at least 24 hours prior to the meeting will be allotted 5 minutes to comment per speaker. Repetitive comments may be limited, and larger groups are encouraged to select representatives to express the opinions of the group. We had no previous requests to speak, so do we have any comments from the public at this time? Any comments from the public? Please go to the podium, state your name, address, and you have 3 minutes.
Can everyone hear
There
me
we
now?
go.
Okay. My name is Amarjeet Kaur. I just wanted to kind of add to what he was saying. I wanted to know like what kind of educational tool he was using, but Diana mentioned that we can use the stuffers for the, in the water bill. And I am more than willing to, if you need help with the Punjabi translation, I will, offer that. I also wanted to ask Zach, since he is going to be preparing for the parade, I think some of the things should be translated in all languages that are spoken here, because a lot of people do attend, and if it's prepared ahead of time, since I feel like we have only a month and a half left, that would be a great addition to represent. And maybe he can connect with libraries and some of the schools that also train citizen for the citizenship examination that can get to the public very well. Thank you.
So council, I would like to introduce Amarjeet, who is our newest employee to finance. So welcome, Amarjeet, and this is her first council meeting that she's attending, and I really appreciate you providing your input. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Welcome to the team, and thank you. All right, Mr. Nicoletti.
Thank you, Mayor. John Nicoletti. I wanted to touch on this last presentation you had real quick because it addresses your question, Councilwoman, and your comments too, Councilman. When the Orville event happened, we know the chaos that occurred. One of the things that wasn't really noticed was that there were people in senior homes that had no way to deal with this. There were people in hospital beds. There were people that were just convalesced at home or however, most of them unconnected, disconnected. Alex Bumpus spends the next 4 days, day and night in his office, coordinates 8 different ambulance companies from throughout Northern California, placed our citizens from Santa Rosa to Placerville and beyond. If we didn't have a company and operator like this, it would have been a massive disaster. And I just recommend when you do have those coordinated meetings, don't forget Bi-County Ambulance. They are key. They fulfilled a role that nobody else could get to, and we couldn't have done it without them.
Thank you. Mr. Bumpus, if they haven't told you before, thank you for all the work you did in 2017. So, well, every day. I was thinking of the 8 different companies. So, all right. I'm just tongue twisted tonight. Yeah, I know. I still have to talk to people about that one. All right. Yeah, see, my time is up. We're going to move on. Is any other comments from the public? Any other comments from the public? All right. Hearing none, we will go ahead and move to the consent calendar. All matters listed under consent calendar are considered to be routine and can be enacted in one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items prior to the time that council votes on the motion unless members of the city council request specific items to be discussed or removed from the consent calendar for individual action. Does anyone have any comments on the public consent calendar? Any comments on the public consent calendar? Is that a leaving or comments? Have a good evening, sir. All right. It's nothing I said. All right. So let's bring it back. We'll close the public comment and we'll bring it back to the council for any questions or action.
Through the mayor.
Yes, ma'am.
I move to approve the consent calendar items.
Okay. I have a motion to approve consent calendar items 8 through 10.
Second.
I have a second from the vice mayor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Motion carries. We will now move to business items, and this is the City Housing Loan Programs Administration. It will be an agreement between the city and Habitat for Humanity. Mr. Ben Moody, you have the floor, sir.
All right, so good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. So the item before you tonight is really in regards to the city's housing loan programs, particularly the first-time homebuyer program and the owner-occupied rehab programs that we've had. And so I'm going to walk you through a little bit of history and a proposed agreement. So the city has been a recipient of Home Investment Partnership Program and Cal Home Funding and Community Development Block Grant Program Fund, CDBG funding, for many years. And those funds have allowed the city to operate 2 housing loan programs, I say, the first-time homebuyer program and the owner-occupied housing rehab. And so we have these 2 programs, but we use these 3 funding sources and then how they break out in order to fund those based on the funding availability and then some of the restrictions that are tied to each of those funding sources to work through those. But basically 2 programs for loans that we look to aid low-income or income-based qualifiers to help them keep housing stock in nice shape and to let entry-level individuals get into homes. So in January of this year, our been the administrator for this program on the city's behalf provide notice that they will no longer be able to provide those services to the city. And so with that, we've been on hold with those funds, trying to figure out, okay, what's some next steps? Who can be a provider? Who's able to handle this program, and how do we move forward? And so there was some outreach done to potential housing providers such as Mercy Housing. We reached out to different agencies that were also coordinating with RHA previously, such as Orville, Yuba County, Marysville, just finding out what they were going to do for next steps. And really what was relayed to us is that because of the economy and the prices that were going on for construction and also for the housing prices, it was just, there was no way to move these loans and get them off the books. It was really difficult. And then the restrictions on the funding, it was difficult to basically administer it and get paid back for that time. And so, so with that, there was also input from Habitat for Humanity, Yuba-Sutter. And so I see John Nicoletti. I know Joseph Hill relayed to us that there'd be a representative tonight here, that there's some interest. One of the staff members that formerly worked for RHA with that program had partnered or began working with Habitat for Humanity, and they looked at this program and they feel that they can make it work. And so they've coordinated with Marysville, Yuba County, and they've reached out and provided a proposal to Yuba City to administer these programs for a 2-year term going forward. And so, so where we're at to move those forward and then have this funding on the book, the city staff is interested is a real option to move it forward without risking potential funds or to help move that. But I'll dive into it a little bit here. And so basically the contract, it's a 2-year contract. It's to the end of December 2024. And so it's 2 years and a few months once we get up and going. The funds are really restrictive. Basically, we have about $900,000 between all those funding sources that can be used currently for these home loan programs. And then there's individual requirements where the contract talks about a $75 an hour charge that could be used for the administrative costs, but it can't exceed $12,500. And then you get into, as each loan goes out, an activity charge where they could be reimbursed actual costs up to those amounts. And a lot of those are federal stipulations or stipulations that are in those programs. And so really a lot of cost is not recovered unless they deliver a loan. And so the expectation through the program is that with the money that we have on, there's about six to nine homes that they're hoping, loans that they're hoping to put out during that time period, and then move it forward. So here's a table. It's a little bit complicated. Really the takeaway is through home, which is federal, you got $200,000 sitting in housing rehabilitation. You have home, federal, first-time home buyers, $230,000. Cal Home, which is housing rehab, we have $331,000, and then CDBG program income housing rehab, we have $162,000. And then through that, it kind of shows the maximums that could be used, so that $12,500 is the administration cost, the $75 per hour, and then you have these delivery costs that are based on a max percentage of, if they delivered every single dollar of that loan, that would be the max recoverable. But it's the recoverables based on the actual dollars spent, and they provide that, and there has to be documentation that then we could be audited on. With that, one caveat on this is right now, to make things even more difficult, is the state has told us that the first-time home buyer program is on hold until they work through some of the specifics. And so our understanding is the state's going back and looking at those because of the costs and difficulty across the state of getting this funding off the books. And then the repercussions of that, because if we don't get the funding off the books, they're going to start wanting to know, hey, do we have to give the money back or extend the allowed use, or what do we have to do with it? That they've given us a letter that it's on hold until they revamp the program. So really the funds that we're looking at, immediately, we expected that will change over the next 2 years, but immediately we're really looking at owner-occupied rehab loans that they're going to be handling. And the city has some options as we work through this program with staff and with Habitat for Humanity, that there are some options to transfer funding, because it's loan funding that we could put into different pots by the city based on what we think is best for the city and how we would like to move that money around. So the proposed agreement, as stated, it's a two-year agreement with Habitat to be the administrator of these loan programs, and it's really to advertise. There's a lot that goes into it. Just an example would be an owner-occupied project is that they advertise, they pre-qualify folks, they answer questions as far as qualifications or not, and then they actually work with bidding the contract and administering the contracts for these rehabs. So if somebody, I know in the past they needed an electrical, it was a really old house that had some of the old wiring, and so it was they administered electrical contract per federal guidelines. So they have to get 3 bids and run through the quotes, and then they administer that and they keep it within budget on the behalf of the subrecipient. So there's a little bit that goes into the management of the contract. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. I don't want to put John on the spot, but he's here on behalf of Habitat for Humanity Yuba-Sutter, and staff is recommending council authorize the city manager to enter into a subrecipient agreement with Habitat for Humanity Yuba-Sutter for the administration of the city's housing loan programs, with the finding that that entry into the agreement is in the best interest of the city.
Thank you, Mr. Moody. Is there any questions from the council? Okay, seeing none. I do have a question, Ben, if you can go back a few slides to those right there, your expenses. When you talk about the amounts that can be charged basically for the loan fees, does that come out of the proceeds or does that come from another source? Basically what I'm looking at is the top one, the home housing rehabilitation, 201. Is that really 152 because you got 48.5 coming out of it potentially for funding fees?
You're correct. It comes out of the program. So that 200, if they tapped out the maximum out of it, all of a sudden you'd be at 150 and change.
And what does an actual, and I know this is a what if, but really are we looking at that much in administrative costs for a loan?
Well, that's the cap per the program. And right now we can't get the money out the door because of qualifications for it. And so I would say that the typical loan amount is $30,000 to $40,000 for these owner-occupied rehabs, and there's a lot that goes into the construction management of that. If it's 20% of a $30,000 contract and administration and pre-qualifying and marketing, I would say, yeah, you probably hit a lot of time, staff time goes into that $30,000, $40,000 loan. I would say for the first-time home buyer, I'm not familiar with the project to say, yeah, it's 50,000, it's a quarter of the loan. But we haven't had a first-time home buyer loan in a very long time. And I don't know how much of the pre-effort, with the marketing, how many people fall out of application versus go through there. I don't know if John can answer to that at all, but that's based on the cap in the federal program.
Right. Yeah, it was just a general overall question because I know these are all set by other people, but that's just from a business standpoint, that's a huge loan cost. So I just want to make sure I understood it. So with that, I'll bring it back to any other questions from the council. Okay. Do I have any comments from the public? Any comments from the public? Mr. Nicoletti, did you want to make any comments tonight? Okay. All right, last call. Any other comments, questions, or actually comments from the public? Back to the council for action then.
I have a comment first.
Oh, comment, go ahead.
I think I want to acknowledge Habitat for Humanity stepping up and taking over this program. Familiar with RHA and what happened with them leaving the program and the lurch that that resulted that the city had these funds, and whether they were going to have to take them on and try to administer it ourselves or find a partner. So thank you for being a partner. This is important stuff and good work in our community. Appreciate it.
Right. Any other comments, or is council ready for action?
Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into a sub-recipient agreement with Habitat for Humanity, Yuba-Sutter, for the administration of the city's housing loan programs